I don't know how 100-year-old companies are made because I'm the first generation entrepreneur. But there's a fear. Will my company be a 100-year-old company after me? Yes or no? And the statistics are pretty sad. Family-owned businesses have now still contributing 75% of GDP. Statistics that I got. Only 13% of family businesses survive in the third generation, and only 4% go into the fourth generation. So when we say you're going to be a 100-year-old company taking over, the chances are 4%. So what is it actually that we look at in terms of growing the business and thinking of the future on the subject that is taken? Mr. Junaid, you shook me by giving this subject. And I hope that Vishal will be able to guide us better, because he just hinted that maybe you go into an IPO in order to make it survive beyond the point. So I think the times have certainly changed, and what the first generation actually brought about was instinct. And you talked about doing it in a small way. We brought about speed. We brought about with personal relationships. That's the kind of first generation that I think in most cases that we were able to do. And when you went on, we came to the second point that again Vishal talked about, which was the valuation game that we did. And we are all pitching to become big valuations in terms of it. And is that the succession plan that we really wanted to do in order to keep on increasing the valuation that we were there? And that's a big question that comes up, because is my company of the last 45 years that I have held based on the fact that we wanted to actually create a valuation? And when we look back at all that, we suddenly realized that it was much more than just the valuation creation, excuse me, that we were really thinking about, but it was the creation of a value proposition, something like what Mr. Junaid also said in his introduction. So I think the question of between the two, we still hang on to say, what are these companies which actually go into the 100-year story, actually look at, are they the valuation creation that we are really looking at? Or is it the value creation that we are really up to? And I think the dichotomy between the two really ends when we look at our own history of the companies that we are looking forward to see it. What was that difference that made our company or the companies which have existed over a period of years really based on? I think the first and most important thing is trust, and the second is integrity. If you look at the common factor of all the companies which actually live beyond the second generation, it is trust and dignity, and not necessarily valuation. I bring about the name of a person called Mr. Ratan Tata, a friend who, when he passed away, there were no newspapers, neither the economic papers or otherwise, which talked about his valuation. Nobody spoke about what he was actually worth in terms of the billions of rupees or dollars that he really did. And I think that brings about a clear mindset that when you want to create companies and corporates an inheritance which goes beyond just the valuation game, that is one thing which I would like to leave behind and say, this is a man you could trust, and this is a man who could have integrity that we want to talk about. And that is what creates a confusion for the next generation. Because people in the world of business talk about valuation. They don't talk about value creation that is there. Neither does Hurun talk about it except in the lecture today. And nor does the economic paper talk about the integrity and those aspects of it that are really going to do. But we all know from inside, all the people who are founders of companies which have remained over a period of time, that the value that they bring to the people in terms of product or in terms of service has had that difference which is being created, which actually brings about a value creation that you are really going to do. It is also the culture that you bring, the relationships that you do, and also the reputation that you continue to grow. One daga, one dhappa, one wrongdoing in lots of work that you are doing can actually bring down the value that you are. You may still be very rich in terms of monetary positions that you have, but the institutions don't survive on the basis of value, but they do on the basis of valuation, but they do survive, and they're able to take over and see to it that the problems and the dips in terms of problems that we see repeatedly, one after the other, there is a question there. So, what is it that we really brought to the table when we started real estate business? And there was a big confusion, because that was the time when Haji Mastan and Yusuf Patel ruled the roost. Black money was most of the time had to have if you wanted to buy any plot of land that you really wanted to do. The quality of products were absolutely third grade. And that is why in 30 years, you find that all redevelopment has to be done for the buildings that really came up. And there was a big confusion as to where we would stand. And what was my compounding personal problem that I had? I had a father. My father, Dr. L.H. Hiranandani, Padma Bhushan, Dhanvantri Award winner, a person who had huge reputation. His clients, customers, patients included Ghanshyam Das Birla, J.R.D. Tata, Mahindras, Mafatlals, and so on and so forth. But irrespective of the worth that he was, the reputation and the integrity and the position that he enjoyed in the presence of all of them was the fact that they looked up to him in that sense of the term. And today, when I got into the real estate industry, the first minister that I had a meeting with early in my days, now the situation is not so bad. Early in the days when I went, he gave me an appointment because I was Dr. Hiranandani's son. But he told the secretary, please don't put his name, write down son of Dr. L.H. Hiranandani, because he is a builder. That is the situation that really comes about when we realize the difference that we really need to do when we all target to do it. And that is exactly the same reason why successive generations of people and entrepreneurs do not continue that story, because the thought of value proposition as compared to valuation proposition takes the upper hand in the minds of the succession destination or the successive generations to do. So when we went into Powai, as an example, we realized that because it was a far away, at that point of time, Powai was very far away, we said, what is it that we really need to give to the clients and customers there? And it was very confusing, because we'd had little money, and I didn't have Vishal to give us money at that point of time. So I was borrowing private capital at 2% per month on hundis that are there, with personal guarantees, with interest reduction 3 months in advance. And in spite of that, we had to think through and say, what is it that a person who buys a house in Powai needs? So we decided to put up a school. We also decided to put up a hospital. We put up gardens. We put up the first recycling plant in Mumbai. Now the question is, all those thoughts in terms of value made less profits at that time because it was not a profitable deal at that point of time. But we thought of the value creation that we thought the projects will happen. And hence, even 35 years ago, people come and tell me, wow, what a lovely project there is. And just now also somebody mentioned about Powai. And I think to myself, what's so great about Powai? It was conceived in our minds 35 years ago. But now that I have been asked to speak over here, I realize the underlying factor, that we were not looking at the valuation alone. It was the value proposition that we really brought to the table, where we said that if I wanted to come and stay in the house that I was constructing and giving to some other person to live, what is the needs of the people that are required to there? So whether it was a supermarket, we built the first supermarket, we ran it ourselves for the last 30 years. Now we've closed it down because we didn't do very good in retail, but we ran the hospitals very well and we ran the schools very well and we continue to do so. What we are trying to say here today is that we, in the business of business, think of only the economic entities, and we don't look at the other aspects of it. But if you want the successive generations to continue to it, if the value proposition is brought to the table, it will make a world of a difference. Even Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani, I remember, in one of the lectures that I attended in Navi Mumbai, when they were first doing it, where he was looking at the launch of the mobile phone. At that time, the mobile phone cost was 15 rupees 50 paisa incoming calls, 15 rupees 50 paisa outgoing calls. And he said, I want every person in India to be able to use a mobile phone, and it should cost less than a postcard. Now, here was one of the richest people in the country, not talking about the kind of profits he made. I'm sure he was thinking about how much profit he's going to make. Underline, I don't think he had any other thought but making the great profit. But at the end of the day, the thought process which he pitched out and cleared it over there was to create a mobile phone connectivity which should be less than 1 rupee a card. At that time, a postcard was used. Nowadays, we don't have those things anymore. And he said that it was there. That indicates very clearly the kind of thought process in a man whose successive generations are still doing fantastically well. Because at the end of the day, that is what the value proposition that he brought to the table, and it came continuously to there. Hence, I do believe that this is something which we have to think about for successive generations. But I have failed. I am still confused, my friends, as to how to create a 100-year-old company. I don't know whether my successive generations will be able to continue this road path that I have set. I am not sure. I do understand the principles of how the successive generations happen. And hence, I look forward to interactions with you, to the ideas that are coming over here of how such people have done what they have done. There are lots of thoughts about it. But these common factors that I see are things which have survived with so many of those companies. I am confused. I am deliberating and thinking through what is the discipline that we need in our companies. What is the governance that I need to bring to the table? Being a private company, we have less governance factors which are there. But if I want to continue the generations of it, what are those value propositions that are going to be there for the successive generations to do that? It's confusing. So when you give the subject, I only have these 1 or 2 propositions which I think I will use for myself. But I will look forward to hearing from all of you in personal and other interactions to know more. Because I'm excited to make a 100-year-old company, and I do hope that my successive generations will do the same. But I don't know if I have all the principles and clarity in my mind to make this happen to do it. I do know that I have to be updated. I have to be a learner. I have to improve my views and visions of what the products are going to be in the future. I know I have to imbibe technology. All that I know. I'm very good at it. And I'm sure that I'll be able to pass all those values to the successive generations to do so. But what works? Only 4% and 13% in the third generation. I'm scared. Why should it be that I worked so hard for so many years and tried to bring all this money's worth and bring all this to society and do all that? And I'm still confused. What's the right answer? Please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I please request you to remain on stage. And I request Ms. Sonia Das Gupta of JF Financial and Mr. Anas Ramanjanet once again back on stage to present sir with the felicitation and the memento. And may I please request the mementos to be brought onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a resounding round of applause for Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. Thank you so much, leaders on the dais.